So this will be the last person I introduce, but I wanted to make sure that I did this before my voice gave out. I'm extremely proud to present a unique presenter here. Why? He's the youngest person I've ever heard of at one of these things. 14 years of age. And I never thought this would be possible, but I've interviewed him myself on my show. I've talked to him privately. I would consider him already at his age, even though he only started researching this apparently at the age of 11, I believe he qualifies as a photographic expert on this case, which is a huge array, a huge universe of stuff that you have to familiarize yourself with. I have never seen anyone close to his age as familiar with this evidence. And I think that we're all privileged to see him today. And it'll be his first presentation at a conference like this, because like I said, I've never seen a 14-year-old present at one of these. You're going to be impressed, I'm very sure. And I've seen a lot of people in the past few decades. So, Alex Harris, come on up, man. I'm dying to see this.
Thank you for having me here. My presentation, as you see, is going to be about the Dallas Cinema Associates. It's something a lot of people don't seem to know about in this case. Hold on, let me pull up my notes. As you heard, I'm 14. I started my research a few years ago at the age of 11. I've looked into the case quite a bit, and the DCA film, it seems that a lot of people either haven't heard of the film or don't know too many details about this film, and in my opinion, it's one of the more interesting films surrounding the assassination, and I guess I'll go ahead and get started. So just after the assassination, the Gewertz family, which consisted of a man named Irving David Gewertz, an architect, Anita Gewertz, Irving's wife, and their son, and Martin Anthony Gewertz, took their home movie camera, which was I'll get to that later. They took it to Sanger Harris Department Store at 6952 North Lamar Street and told Bryant Borden of the camera department about their camera, and because it had been experiencing some issues concerning the electric eye, which is the part that regulates the exposure level, and I'm pretty sure the focus too. They did this because their camera, they tried to use it to get a good shot of the motorcade going by, and because of the issues with their camera, they weren't able to. So, of course, Bryant Borden of the Sanger Harris Department Store apologized to the family, and he had the idea to potentially give them a copy of a film that was processing at the time, taken by one Richard Becker Stewart, who I'll talk about later. Anita accepted, the wife of Irving David Gewertz, and she took the film home and had the idea to start calling people along the motorcade route and see if they had gotten film of the motorcade. And she had actually compiled quite a few films, and she found other people who were looking for films around the assassination, including Clarence Eugene Hayes, who I'll also talk about later. And she formed a group in 1964 entitled the Dallas Cinema Associates. They incorporated in early '64, and basically it started off as a group of people who traded their home movies of the motorcade back and forth. But of course, this eventually, Anita didn't, she thought this was a little bit inconvenient because all they had were the originals and they just trade them back and forth, and you only got to see one at a time. So they decided to make a short film which they released in late '64. They signed a contract with Sanger Harris Department Store to exclusive sale rights to the film. They were the only store to sell the film. And quite a few copies were sold, although not too many exist today. I happen to have a copy right here. I don't know if you can see that. They entitled it President Kennedy's Final Hour. It's about 12 minutes long, an 8mm format, and it's a really interesting film. I'll get into the photographers. This is what my presentation is about. The first cameraman we're going to talk about is Larry Eugene Thomas. He took about 15 feet of film, or a little over a minute of film, at Love Field. This is a still from his film right here. He was an employee of Central Airlines, which was a cargo airline in 1963. I need to mention some of these photographers I won't have much information about because there isn't much information available about them. All I have here is as much information I was able to find in the time that I was given. But yeah, Larry Eugene Thomas took this film. That's Air Force One right there, is pulling into Love Field. Moving on, we have James Douglas Brown. He was with his dad, Joe Cern Brown. His dad worked at Love Field, and they brought their woolen sack, Model 43, and took these shots, including of Air Force Two landing and the President and First Lady getting off Air Force One. How they did this is the two climbed up on the south concourse section of the terminal building of Gate 28 at Love Field. And after filming JFK disembark Air Force One, they jumped down and got more film of the President. And they also filmed the motorcade leaving, as you see right there. Next one we have is David Percy Holloway. He was using a Keystone K60 loaded with a roll of Kodachrome 2. He took film before the President arrived and filmed Air Force One land. I don't have a lot of this film. And as you can see here, he filmed the motorcade leaving, and we have these rare shots from his film that weren't included in the DCA film of the motorcade rushing to Parkland Hospital. This film you don't see often. I'm not exactly sure why, but it came to light a few years ago. It is a very overexposed shot in the film, but in this bottom left corner one, you can see Clint Hill. He is splayed over the back of the car. It's kind of hard to see, and this one you can see the front of the car with the American flag, and this one is the hardest one to see. It is one of the press buses in the motorcade going to Parkland Hospital. As you can see, Clint Hill is splayed over there. You can see a semi-truck in the background, and I believe that's John Connolly right there. Yeah, pretty interesting film. As you can see, I have pretty high-quality frames. That's the limousine just leaving Love Field. Yep. Next, we have the first of the motorcade. We have Albert Lewis Bunnell's film. He took film of, as you can see right there, that's Air Force Two landing at Love Field, or approaching Love Field. He was an employee of Campbell Taggart Associated Bakeries at 6211 Lemon Avenue, and he got up on the roof of the building, actually, and he took film of the motorcade going by, and he took film of it in the distance. Really interesting film it is. You don't see shots like this of the motorcade, or really any of JFK's motorcade, a lot. But yeah, it does look like it's from a little bit of a higher angle, but that's just because it's filming further in the distance from the... He was on, as I said before, he was on top of Campbell Taggart Associated Bakeries. And, moving on to the next slide, C.W. Gray was also a employee of Campbell Taggart Associated Bakeries at 6211 Lemon Avenue, and he took his Keystone camera and filmed just in front of the bakery. And his film, a lot of the DCA films, you don't see a lot, especially not in any media about the assassination. There is some, and I'll get to those later. But of course, you can see the presidential limousine in the left one, and this one is, I'm pretty sure that's camera car 2 or 3. I'm not really sure about that. It's hard to tell, but do have 2 pictures taken from this exact location. I'm not exactly sure who took them, but could be more employees of Campbell Taggart. So you can see here that sign in the background is exactly the same. This one here, taken almost exactly at the same time as that film. These are a little bit low quality. This is the best I could find. Then we have Hazel Goosh. She was an employee of A&P Grocery at 5011 Lemon Avenue, and she filmed from a sidewalk in front of the grocery store. Again, not much information on her, but this, I think, is her film. Of course, she was on Jackie's side. You can actually see the license plate of the limousine right there, GG300. Of course, the President and First Lady right there. And we have Clarence Eugene Hayes, who I mentioned earlier, who helped form the DCA. He was at the intersection of Lemon and Lomo Alto. He was near another cameraman named Chris Derazette, although I don't have stills from that film. He filmed the motorcade go by, of course. He got some pretty good shots. This text right here is because the Derazette family, who he was standing very close to, made a banner that said, "Please stop, shake our hands, JFK LBJ 64. Of course, you can see the lead motorcycles, the lead car, and all the way towards the left, you can see the presidential limousine approaching. And of course, in this one on the right, you can see the President and First Lady. Then we have Ernest Charles Montesina. A few of you might have heard of his film before. Robert Groden released a pretty good copy of it in the assassination films. I'm pretty sure this is his film on, I think, Turtle Creek Avenue or Turtle Creek Boulevard. I'm not completely sure about that, but it does match what he said about his film. And of course, he went to Dealey Plaza after the assassination and got shots of the police searching the book depository and around Dealey Plaza. Of course, that has been misidentified as the assassin's rifle. I'm not sure why. And of course, you can see a policeman on the fire escape of the book depository. Next, we have George R. Kincaid. He was the owner of Kincaid Photo Studio Service at 3013 Ruth Street. And of course, he filmed just down the street from his company. he, Kincaid Photo Studios, they developed not only Jim Murray's photos of Black Star, which is, I don't have any in this slideshow, but a lot of very good photos. He took the one of, gosh, I can't remember that. It was one of the detectives that found that, supposedly found that bullet casing by the storm drain. And they also, Kincaid Photo Studio Service developed Dwayne Robinson's photos around the same location. His photos were sold to the Paris Match magazine in, I think, '66, and they were published in there. But anyways, yeah, this is George Kincaid's film. Another news photographer was on the other side of the street and got a black and white 16 millimeter film, but I don't have that in here. I'm not sure who took that film. I'm still looking into it, but anyways. Of course, we have Martin Anson Gewirtz, who I talked about in my introduction. Most of these stills have never been seen before. I was the first to discover that this film is the Gewirtz's film. It matches exactly where they said they were, which is by the Pontiac dealership on the intersection of Cedar Springs Road and Harwood. You can see they didn't really get a good shot of the president. Of course, you can see the motorcade turning onto Harwood. And then they went down to the Trade Mart afterwards, tried to get another shot of the president, but unfortunately their camera didn't want to work again, and they only got a shot of the vice presidential limousine going by and some of the later motorcade going to Parkland. And they later went to Parkland and got film of the hearse leaving with the president's body, which is right there. Then we have Dr. Howard Young Sigler. He was using, oh, I forgot to mention, going back, sorry. Martin Anson Gewirtz was using a Bell & Howell 8mm electric eye model 416, very similar to Abraham Zapruder's camera, which took the Zapruder film, obviously. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. Returning back to this, Howard Young Sigler, he used a Kodak electric zoom automatic with roll of Kodachrome 2, like a lot of people did. And he took about 50 feet of 8mm film near the north corner of Harwood and McKinney on JFK's side. There was a Ford dealership here. There's a few photos I'm not sure who took them from that same location. You can see Governor Connolly looking towards the camera. And of course, unfortunately, the president wasn't looking in the same direction, so we didn't get a very good shot of the president. And of course, he filmed the later motorcade go by. This is one of the films in the DCA film that you might see a lot in some of the media surrounding the assassination, taken by Rudolph Victor Brink, who got out with his Chemex camera with a roll of Dynachrome. And he was close to the corner of Harwood and Ross, which is close to about 1700 North Harwood Street on JFK's side. And he was the one that edited the DCA film together. Unfortunately, he did, from what I've been told, he clipped the original films together. And a lot of the original films were not necessarily taken care of. But yeah, this film has been used in a few documentaries. Yeah. And of course, we have one of the most famous shots from the DCA film, which is taken by Nicholas Viafedis. You see this in quite a few documentaries. It was used in the movie JFK in 1991. Basically, it's a shot that JFK nods towards the camera. He looks directly at the camera, and here you can see the MG sign at Overseas Motors. That was at 808 North Harwood. Nicholas Viafedis was close to 900 North Harwood. And he sold his film to Earl Mester because he didn't want to be associated with the DCA. Not sure why, but... Then we have George Alderson Shaver. Sorry. We're kind of jumping from Harwood to Main Street now. You can see Jules Ernest Spiegel right there, who I'll talk about next. He's standing on a newspaper stand. But yeah, Shaver got shots of the motorcycles and later the limousine going by. This is at the intersection of near the corner of Main and Lamar, close to about 900 Main Street. Then this is Jules Ernest Spiegel's film. He was, as I mentioned before, he was standing on top of a newspaper stand and got film from there. He was very, very close to George Shaver, who I just talked about. And of course, you see this shot a lot too, with the text interchange of warmth. And of course, Richard Becker Stewart, you also see this film a lot, because this is supposedly H.B. McLean right here, who supposedly caused the interference on the Dallas Police Dictabelt tapes. I don't believe that, but it's for you to interpret. Unfortunately, Richard Becker Stewart didn't really get a long shot of the limousine going by. It was just about half second. And of course, this was the film given to the Gewirtz family when they approached Bryant Bourne about their film. Bryant Bourne was actually standing right near Richard Becker Stewart to watch the motorcade go by. Of course, you see the later motorcade here, the three camera cars, and yeah, this is just outside of Dealey Plaza here. The Houston Street that's Houston Street there. And of course, we have John Martin Jr. He took film in Dealey Plaza. As you can see, his film is severely underexposed. But you can see the limousine turning onto Houston Street there, with the text nearing School Book Depository. Limousine going by there, you can see the bright yellow license plate there, GG300. Then very, very rare film here, we have the turn onto Elm Street. You can see the tire of the limousine just there. And of course, this is just after that. Unfortunately, he did get film. I'm pretty sure he got film during the assassination, but unfortunately, it was edited out of the DCA film. And that's camera car 3 going by. If don't have a good copy of that, but that is Mal Couch filming from camera car 3. I made a discovery a while ago. This is not really related to the DCA film, but I wanted to share this. This will be the first time I'm sharing this publicly. So, a lot of you probably don't know, I'm from Missouri. I moved down here a few months ago in August. And last year I was in 7th grade, and I was talking to one of my friends about the assassination. He knew I was pretty well into the case, and I was talking to him about all the stuff I'd found. And he just kind of casually mentioned to me, "Oh yeah, my grandmother, I think she saw the assassination." So of course, I had to know more about this. Supposedly, he told me the story of her, and I guess she had gotten out to see the motorcade, and she was standing in the grass section to watch the motorcade, and she, I guess, saw the motorcade go by. She heard the shots, and after the motorcade went by, she started running towards the street which was behind her, which just so happens to have been Main Street. You can see here I presented, her name was Carol Huffman, by the way. And you can see her in several of the films surrounding the assassination. We have the next film right here. This is just as the limousine was going by. She's in the yellow, or kind of dark yellow jacket there. And she was with her husband, who was wearing a blue shirt. This is the Pascal film. She just is continuing to run. I go, yeah. Go over there. This is the Mark Bell film. She is, again, further into her run. That's her husband running in front of her. And then, of course, in the Hughes film, she returns to where she was, and they start to stare at the knoll, which is interesting because I think they would agree that the shot came from the knoll. And of course, Frank Cancellaire, a UPI photographer, captures them running towards the knoll. And it doesn't show in this photo, but something interesting is that just under, right here, next to her purse, she is holding a camera, which obviously means that, of course, I don't believe they got photos of the assassination. It leads me to think that they got photos surrounding the assassination, which would obviously be very, very historic, valuable photos. And unfortunately, I'm still looking into this whole story, and I'm desperately trying to get in contact with her about the photos, because she's still alive. Carol Huffman is still alive. She's one of the only witnesses of the assassination that's still alive. Not exactly sure where she is, but I know she's not in Dallas. But yeah, really interesting story. I just happened to come across that. Was not expecting to discover that. Well, I guess I don't have much more to say. Sorry if I am a little early. Thank you so much for having me present here. I'm glad to have this as my first presentation, and I hope you guys know more about the DCA film now. If anyone has any questions, I'm willing to answer any that you might have. Yes.
Yeah, did the Dallas Cinema Group mention in any of their meetings or whatever all the supposed videos that were taken that were confiscated? I've read a lot of different stories saying whoever it was, Secret Service, FBI, was going around asking, got pictures, and they took the camera and they never got the pictures back.
As far as I know, I don't think they discussed any of the confiscated films, but I know John Martin Jr. did give his film to the FBI in early '64, but they quickly returned it to him, saying it had no value. Any more questions? Yes.
So I just want to make sure I understood your story correctly. The Huffman video or photos,
Yeah.
that's a friend of yours, is their grandmother,
Yes.
and you did the homework to assemble like all the different places you see her. That's your work.
Yes, I just tried to match what I heard from her story to one of the witnesses, and that's the best I could do. I I mentioned, sorry, yeah, sorry, I didn't make it, I guess I didn't make it too clear. I'm still working on trying to regain contact with this person. I'm struggling a little bit, but I'm still working on getting contact. I'll have more information about this out as soon as I can. But yeah.
Very good.
Any more questions? Yes.
Is this 12-minute film on any websites?
Yes, I believe it's on my YouTube channel, which is it's the JFK Theorist. It's the JFK Theorist, 3 words, all capitalized. Yes. Thank you, thank you. I think we have one more question.
Alex, wonderful presentation. Is this thing on? Okay. Could you tell us a little bit more about Bryant C. Boren Sr.? His daughter was actually one of my teachers in high school.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't recall too much about this right now. I promise you, I've done my research on this. But yeah, Bryant Boren was an employee of Sanger Harris Department Store, which actually wasn't too far from here. It was, I mentioned the address earlier, I can't recall it now. But yeah, he worked for the camera department, and he actually supplied the Gewurz family with their camera. He developed some of the DCA films, and yeah, really interesting story. Yeah.
Following up on this gentleman's question, can you just describe, I mean, a lot of cameras were confiscated, and I think people were doing that for patriotic reasons, but how many cameras did finally come back? And did all their pictures come back? Did they say they were missing things? What is the entire story on that, if you have that work done?
Regarding the DCA film, or?
No, in general, all of it. No.
As far as I know, they were only a fraction of the Dallas motorcade films and photos that were ever got to the hands of the government. Of course, a few of them were returned not exactly in the best condition, like the Nix film, but as far as I know, only a fraction of the films surrounding the assassination were confiscated, or were ever in the hands of the U.S. government. And a lot of them are still being discovered nowadays, because people kind of just throw them aside, and yeah. Any more questions? No? Yes. Yes, I forgot to mention, going back to John Martin Jr., I talked to his son, or one of his sons, named Kenneth Martin. I guess they have John Martin Jr.'s camera, but unfortunately, they've tried to find his original film, and they can't seem to find it anywhere. I had read in Pictures of the Pain by Richard Trask that it was in a safety deposit box, and I guess Kenneth Martin didn't know this. His name was Kenneth Martin. He still lives in the same house in Dallas. Yeah. Is there any more questions? No. Yes.
I want to make a comment. You might be one of the only people here who finally gets to see everything when it's all released.
Well, I guess I'll go ahead and end my presentation there. I don't have anything else.